Well, hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to today's program, the Maximum Performance webinar series. This is a continuation of the series that we've been running for a couple of years. My name is Eric Chinesco. I'm the head coach and CEO here at Maximum Acceleration, and we're going to be getting underway shortly here. We're just a minute or so after the hour. We're going to give folks just a few more minutes to get registered. You know, a lot of times with these events, you know, the calendar alarm goes off. Then they have to end the phone call, get their computer signed in, and all that kind of stuff to be able to get rolling here. So we'll be getting underway momentarily as we get into today's program. But just as a kind of a courtesy to get us rolling and ready to go, there's a couple of preemptive things that I want to take advantage of here, just to make sure that you all get the best overall possible experience out of today's event. And that is that I want to go ahead and introduce to you a couple of things that are going to help you get more out of today's event. Today is actually a little bit different type of a program than we do in a lot of our traditional webinars. You know, normally our webinar series is very much an educational program where we have either one of our coaching team or a guest speaker come in and present a specific piece of training on a specific topic, and then from there able to, you know, to go in and just kind of leave some Q&A at the very end of the call. Today is much more interactive in nature. Today is intended to be one where it's really more of a an overview of what we do here at Maximum Acceleration, to give you kind of a snapshot of how that all works and that kind of thing. So to get the most out of today's program, there's a couple of things that we want to do, especially those of you who have volunteered to participate. There's a couple of things that I want to do to make sure that you all are able to get the best overall possible audio experience. And to Corey Perez, the gentleman who, one of the gentlemen who indicated that he would like to experience live coaching, I'm going to have you do one of the things for me, Corey, if you're listening. If you can send me a quick note via the chat or through the Q&A panel, let me know. The other thing I wanted to do, Corey, is I'm going to upgrade you to presenter, just which is a little easier to find you. Actually, you know what? I don't need to do that, though. I can unmute you easily enough. There's one thing I would like you to do, though, Corey, if you can, so that we have the best overall audio experience. And this is for everybody else on the call as well. If you guys will, you know, if you want to participate in the program and you do want to be able to get some live coaching today, or to be able to ask questions live as we go through the program, go ahead, and if you wouldn't mind, you're going to find that you're going to get the best overall quality of audio experience, and that the rest of the audience will be able to get the best overall audio experience if you go ahead and use the telephone option for accessing the audio for the program, especially you, Corey, because I want to be able to have a real dialogue with you, to be able to communicate live with you. It would really help me out if you could go ahead and log in using the telephone option instead of the computer, mic, and speakers option. The reason for that is, you know, a lot of times computer, microphone, and speakers, you get a lot of background noise. It sounds like you're on a speakerphone a lot of times, and as a result of that, it can be very difficult for folks to hear what we're saying and be able to communicate clearly. Secondly, with that is, guys, as far as the quality of audio, there you go, and you've got yourself muted, Corey, so you're in good shape. Good. I can get you taken care of when we get to the live section of the program. All right. For the rest of you listening on board, if you don't want to participate, then feel free to go ahead and listen through mic and speakers. But I will tell you, just to, you know, we're well over our 100th episode in this series. We've been doing it since October of 2012, and as a result, we've learned a little bit about how to help folks get the best overall experience from these types of webinars. We find that you generally overall will get the best audio experience, and you won't have any issues with popping, cracking, distortion, delays in sound, or where it sounds like I'm talking through one of those auto tuners if you go ahead and use the telephone option to be able to access the audio. You do that just by hitting the little plus sign by the word audio in the control panel, kick it up to telephone, use the dial-in phone number and access code that are in the control panel to the right side of your screen to get that best overall audio experience. And the obvious reason for that is just because when we do it from that perspective, that's where you're going to be able to, you know, to be able to see the best overall results. So just as a quick preamble here, as we're, you know, getting the rest of the crew signing in, it looks like we're about halfway there with who had registered for today's program. But as other people are getting signed in, if you guys want to, let me do one other quick thing, which is if you don't want to actually talk live or be able to have your microphone opened up so that I can actually hear you, You can also communicate with me through the chat function. If you go ahead and go into the chat section of the webinar, or the question section of the webinar, you hit the little plus sign next to the questions box. That will open up the questions panel where you can communicate with me. If you want to actually even be able to have a little more if you want to make it a little easier to read those questions and whatnot, you can go ahead and even hit this little arrow out of the corner icon, which is actually the undock button. You hit that button, that's going to allow you to go ahead and to undock that, so you can see it, enlarge it, and make it more of a full screen program. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get us off the ground here. And part of the reason that I wanted to go ahead and do this so that we can all get going is recognize and understand that what we do and how we do it here at Maximum Acceleration is something that's been developed over years and years worth of research and development work. Our company was originally founded by and launched by the Loan Toolbox Company, originally started by Tim Brahim. If you've not heard of that company, long story short, one of the top originators in the country for many years running in the late 90s and early 2000s was a guy by the name of Tim Brahim. Tim and his team had grown their business to where they were averaging over 80 loans a month as a producing originator. And as a result of that, Tim basically took all this knowledge and information about what he had done to build his business to that phenomenal level, and as a result of that, he basically took all that information and put it into this website. But one of Tim's biggest frustrations is that he had by 2003 had grown that company to where he had over 3,000 members who were active participants in that business. But his biggest challenge is he would go out and he would speak, and people would sign up for the program. They'd log in a time or two, and then they'd disappear, basically never to be heard from again. So in 2004, I had an opportunity to meet and begin to work with Tim myself. I had done fairly well for myself as an originator, nowhere near the level that Tim had, but I had a real passion for training and development. And as a result of that, I started doing some content development work and some teaching and speaking work on behalf of Loan Toolbox. And in 2004, Tim was really frustrated with this idea of what it really took to turn ideas into action. So he launched a research project called the Implementation Project. He gathered together a group of about 7 of us in the industry, myself included, other guys like Greg Frost and Jim McMahon and Jim Sanger and a couple of other top originators across the country were participants in that project as well, and brought us all together as kind of a think tank group to really understand and research what it took to create transformational growth. And that kind of thing, and rapid acceleration and making sure that things got implemented. As a result of that research study, the team of 7 people, a little over 1,000 man-hours over a 14-month period, really looked at the dynamic of what it took to create lasting behavioral change for business professionals like loan officers. And in the course of that, we researched over 27 different companies, coaching or otherwise, that offered some form of training and development support, both inside and outside the mortgage industry. And we researched what it really took to create lasting and impactful behavioral change. Now, I talk about it as far as transformational growth, and the reason I mention it from that perspective is just thinking about challenging you to transform in what's possible. At the end of the day, for any idea to really change who we are, that idea has to go through basically 5 key phases of transformation for it to really make a difference in who we are and what we do on a daily basis. The first phase is just that general awareness. That's a neat idea. I think that might benefit me somehow. I'll do it later, right? The second is the understanding level. Oh, aha, that's why it works. Now I get it. Okay, cool. I can work with that. Of course, ideas without action. I mean, probably one of the most, one of the biggest false statements most oftenly repeated is knowledge is power. Practical reality is knowledge is not power. Knowledge only becomes powerful when it becomes acted upon. So the third phase of this transformation growth is we've got to take those great ideas and do something with them. We've got to try taking some steps forward with how to implement those ideas. Of course, just like any skill, it takes time, energy, and practice to get really good at it. I mean, you don't pick up a cello today and expect to play a Mozart concerto tomorrow, right? You've got to implement, and you've got to work to refine and perfect that practice over time. But eventually, once you've had the right support, the accountability, and the commitment to practice frequently enough, you get pretty good at things. And when it makes that even if you have to have some external reminder to remind you to do something, like, for example, one of the things we often introduce our coaching clients to is conversation strategies that are designed purposefully to create a high-value experience for the potential customer. Like, for example, when we approach realtors, often we'll use something along the lines of, well, at the end of the day, Mr. Realtor, I don't necessarily want to talk to you about your referrals. The practical reality is if I can't, give you an accurate and timely pre-approval, communicate well throughout the transaction, and close on time, I nor any other loan officer really should deserve your business. So that's not really what I want to talk to you about today, Mr. Realtor. What I'd really love to start with is and my goal and desire is to become an asset and resource to you that's going to help you as an agent do significantly more business in the coming weeks, months, and years. As a result, we can build the kind of commitment, loyalty, and synergy where the two of us together can make a much bigger difference in our community and meeting the needs of helping people benefit and expand their families, meeting the needs of those families, helping them achieve a better housing situation. So that's where I'd really love to start our conversation today, is how I can be that asset and resource to you. Now, that may sound like something really cool. You guys have heard me say that if you've been on any of our webinars before where I talked about the topic about building realtor partnerships and business development partnerships with realtors. You've probably become aware of that service-oriented transformational relationship approach, partner development strategy type thing that I do with realtors, so that we teach our coaching clients how to do with any business development partner or business professional, whether it be a realtor, a financial planner, CPA, insurance agent, or whatever. But here's the trick. If I have to continue to look at that conversation outline to remember how to articulate those key points and ideas, I really haven't been transformed by that concept yet. The final phase of transformation is when it becomes autonomic behavior, where it's my first most natural response. It's what athletes call muscle memory, where it just automatically is the first thing that comes to mind when talking to a new potential agent or a new potential CPA or a new potential wedding planner or a new potential insurance agent or whatever. It's when that transformation occurs where habits are really changed, where we are different as a result of the ideas, concepts, or approaches that we've been exposed to, that we can create massive and radical growth. Now, part of how we organize that in the coaching model is we've built a strategic planning approach, and we have a systematic way of doing it. It's based on what we call the pyramid of a complete loan officer, which helps us narrow down and focus on what we call critical focus areas of business development. In the growth of any sales practice, and we're talking mortgage specific today, but in the growth of any sales practice, you're going to find yourself recognizing that in one of these 6 core areas is where your primary opportunities for growth are. Essential knowledge is about just the nuts and bolts of how to structure a deal and get a loan closed on time, or the mechanics of what you do. For example, for realtors, it's the contract law elements and the listing management systems and all of that kind of stuff that they have to just have a basic grasp on how to execute what needs to be done to complete a transaction. The second layer is selling and presentation. It's how we differentiate ourselves when a potential opportunity for service comes about, right? Why am I better than the next guy? Why should you work with me versus the competitor? And is it all about rate and price or service, or is it something more? How do we go beyond the value of one transaction so that we become an advisor, a partner in that client or that business professional success? Well, that's about selling and presentation. It's about lead capture and conversion. Marketing is about lead generation. It's about where can I find more people who have a need for the services that I offer? How do I expand my reach? and talk to more potential service opportunities in less time. By the way, you may hear me use some wording that may not necessarily make a lot of sense for you. Part of this is a couple of years ago I made a conscious decision to transform the way I relate with clients and individuals. You know, for example, I used to really struggle when it came to asking for referrals, and many of our coaching clients experienced a similar hesitancy. It always felt too self-serving to ask our existing customers for referrals, because we were thinking about the selfish side of being on the taking side of the relationship. One of the things we help our clients do is transform that by being on shifting our mindset to how can we be on the giving side of that relationship first. Where are those service opportunities? Not referrals, but service opportunities. And at the end of the day, I'm not looking to twist somebody's arm and force them to do something that doesn't make sense for them, but I am looking to create an opportunity to provide a valuable service that creates an income for me and my family. Because I can't afford to operate as a charity. I do need to recognize that there's people who depend on me to produce an income, and I've got to be comfortable generating an income that's adequate to meet the lifestyle and survival needs of my family. And at some point potentially grow beyond just the survival mode to some of the things that are, to provide a nice lifestyle and take great vacations and do, fun things as a family, and just have a peace and security of mind that we've got enough money in the bank that we can, do what we want to do and how we want to do it. But, and those are some of those balanced behavior sides of the things that, and by the way, the reason the strategic business plan and balanced behavior are the side rails to this pyramid, because it's those two elements that accelerate our growth up to the peak of the pyramid. Anyway, marketing is about how we find more service opportunities, right? Operational systems and leadership and team building are about capacity. At the end of the day, there's really only three ways to grow a business. One is create more leads. Two is capture more of the leads we create. Or three is create more capacity to handle more volume. And I can guarantee you, having spent, the better part of the last 10 years doing this full-time professionally since 2004, and having the privilege and honor and working with tens of thousands of originators across the country, you have to radically rethink how you run your business if you want to do 20, 30, 50 loans a month compared to 3 to 5. You can't get to 30 or 50 with the same strategy, approach, and mindset and business structure that you use to go from 2 to 5 or from 5 to 10. So at some point you reach a ceiling of capacity where you have to begin to think less like a job, less like a producing originator, and more like a business owner of how you duplicate yourself. So it's really when there's a major threshold between marketing and operational systems, leadership, and team building, where you begin to start taking a little bit more of an ownership mentality and driving for those higher levels of performance and growth, where you can build the team that supports you, that duplicates the experience you have a reputation of creating. And one of the big mental barriers that our clients often experience when they're starting to get to that 8, 9, 10 loan a month ceiling, where they're just stretched at the gills, they're working 100-hour weeks, and they get to the point where they're afraid of marketing because they feel like they're going to do a disservice to the customers because they can't handle anymore. I don't know if any of you are experiencing that right now in your career, and maybe that's part of the reason that you're on this call. But at any level, if you're really pushing the maximum performance levels and you're really trying to stretch and grow your business to that next level, practical reality is at some point you're going to reach a ceiling where you exceed your own personal time use and capacity, and you've got to begin to think about duplicating the experience. The challenge a lot of originators have with that is, well, my customers buy me, my agents refer me, how can I duplicate that to somebody else? Well, that's a little bit of a myth. It's a mental assumption that we make often that is a mistaken assumption. In many cases, they don't buy us. What they do buy is the experience that we have a reputation of creating. If we systemize our process, we can then more efficiently duplicate our process and bring on board a team that's going to help support the growth of that business. But if that business is still requiring our daily involvement, we haven't really truly transition from what Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant, talks about transforming from being self-employed to business owner. And that's where this top tier of this pyramid comes in, is where you've built your business to the point where you could literally disappear for a month to the jungles of Africa or whatever, and you could come back and you wouldn't have missed a beat. You'd still receive the same paycheck, and your income has been put on autopilot, where you have passive income. Well, that's kind of the peak of the pyramid that many of our clients are seeking to drive towards eventually. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can do that. One is, there's really only two ways in life to create passive income. One is to amass enough wealth where you could live off the interest and no longer have to work for an income on a regular monthly basis. Or two is to build a business that is well established and systemized to the level where it will continue to provide an income stream for the owners. And it's at that level where you receive that passive income. Now, whether that's your ultimate goal or not, or whether your goal for the next 6 to 12 months is just to enhance and expand your selling and presentation skills, so you're capturing a higher percentage and you're capturing those at a higher profitability, or whether it's marketing, which is to expand your lead sourcing so you have more opportunities to serve, or whether it's you're reaching that ceiling of complexity and capacity limitation where you don't feel like you can break beyond, and operational team building is where you need to focus your energy and effort. One of the first things I want you to challenge yourselves to do right now is decide which of those three tiers, sales and presentation, lead capture conversion, lead creation, or lead completion, are the top area in the limitation. Ask yourself this question: what is the number one thing keeping you from substantial growth? And I'm not talking, 1 or 2 extra loans a month. I'm talking double or triple the volume over a 6 to 12-month period. Taking it from 2 or 3 deals a month to 5 or 6 deals a month, from 6 or 7 deals a month to 12 to 14 deals a month. What's the biggest obstacle to radical exponential growth, doubling your business year over year consecutively? Why is that an important thing to challenge yourself to do? Because it gets you to think beyond the limitations of your own environment. It also challenges you to look at being more strategic in how you plan your approach and what you focus on accomplishing. Especially this time of year, a lot of our conversations with our clients and a lot of the workshops that we do around the country in live events and on webinar programs is about planning for success and strategic growth planning and what that looks like to have a personal strategic growth plan. Well, we use a program we call the Power Growth System, or Power Strategic Growth System. This developed and evolved through a process of that initial implementation project, as well as what we've learned through the tens of thousands of hours of coaching work that we've done with our one-on-one loan officer clients over the course of the last several years. Practical reality is, though, that most people approach strategic planning from a little bit more of a backwards or reactive approach. I mean, for example, if you've ever been part of a company strategic planning project, a lot of times the gurus who, or the consultants who provide strategic planning support and guidance, a lot of times they start immediately with what's called a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Well, the challenge with that is, if you think about it, is that proactive or reactive? Well, practical reality, as you think about it, it's a very reactive process. Where am I? How do I get a little bit better? What it fails to do, and the biggest mistake it makes, is it doesn't begin with the end in mind. It doesn't ask the question, in an ideal, perfect world, what do I want my business to look like a year from now? So think about from the perspective of, if you're sitting here a year from now, looking back at what we've accomplished together, what would you want your business and life to look like? What's that ultimate vision of what your success look like for you if we're sitting here January of 2016 having this conversation? Get real clear on your purpose and your personal goals and what you really want to change, evolve, or grow about your business over the next 12 months. It then makes it a lot easier to assess, where am I and where do I need to improve? What are my obstacles and what are the solutions that are going to help me overcome those obstacles, so that I can create a detailed step-by-step growth plan. Once I have that growth plan, how do I make sure that that plan gets executed, and that I accelerate that growth curve as I move forward. Well, one of the simplest and easiest ways I can share with you to do that is we use what we call the 3 steps to successful execution. First is you've got to recognize and understand you've got to commit time to growth and development. Just like learning to play a cello, you've got to dedicate some time to practice. You're not going to get good at it without creating the necessary time to refine and revise what we do. In business, it's no different. We need to make sure we block out time and schedule time to work on how we operate our business on a daily basis instead of just getting caught up in the day-to-day minutia of doing the business that we're in. Secondly is we want to create a forward-leaning progress cycle. We want to celebrate the progress that we're making. Far too often, high achievers, high performers, the most goal-oriented people in life have a tendency to fall into what we call a gap mentality. We begin to look at the gap between where we are and where we want to be and the 60 to 80 to 100 steps it's going to take to get there. And all of a sudden, because we're not there already, we get frustrated, which can be very deflating and discouraging. And so it's like, oh, geez, it seems impossible, so why even bother? So we quit. Versus what if we focused on the progress that we made yesterday versus the day before, this week versus last week, this month versus last month. And we celebrate the progress, which creates encouragement, positive reinforcement, and make sure that the things we did well get repeated and reinforced. Then, of course, there are always opportunities. I mean, any experience in life, there's going to be good things and there's going to be bad things. Every time we get off the phone with a potential customer, there's lessons to be learned. And even in the worst of experience, in fact, in some cases, some of the most painful failures can be some of the greatest learning lessons if we embrace the idea of turning every opportunity, good, bad, or indifferent, into an actual learning experience. So we do a 3-step debrief, and we teach our clients how to reinforce the positive, identify the negative and the opportunities for improvement in a positive forward-leaning environment, and then create a follow-up action plan which creates a reciprocal cycle of accelerated growth. Of course, most important is to make a promise. Find an external accountability partner to hold you accountable. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a minute. But right now what I want to do is I want to get into a little bit of a live coaching mode. So Corey, I'm going to unmute your microphone here in just a second. If you're ready, if you wouldn't mind, just do me a quick favor and make sure you're plugged in. Let me know through chat if you're ready to get going here. I'll open up your microphone here in just a second when you let me know you're ready to get started with the live coaching experience. If you want to just give me, okay, great. I'm going to unmute your microphone. So Corey, why don't you say a few words to the folks? I can hear you great, folks. If you want to chime in and let Corey know you can hear him or not, that'd be great. All right, a couple of people are focusing in and saying, all right, so Corey, do me a quick favor if you wouldn't mind. Just give me a quick, like 30-second bio. Tell me a little bit about your business, where you've come from, how long you've been in the business, and what kind of environment, and what area of the country you're in, and what kind of environment you operate and originate in.
Sure. I've been actually originating mortgages for 22 years. I've closed about $300 million in mortgages over that time frame. I'm a division president in Northwest Indiana, and over the last 5 years or so, I've noticed I've kind of been stuck between $5 and $9 million in closed loan business, and just can't seem to get over that hump.
Okay, so 5 to 9 million, Northwest Indiana, outskirts of Chicago area.
Right.
Okay, so oh gosh, what is the place where the coaches are? All the travel coaches, conversion vans.
Conversion
vans?
van?
The name of the town? Yeah, custom conversion vans. Isn't that a real popular industry in your area?
Oh, well, yeah, that would be a little bit more in central northern Indiana. We're just on the outskirts of Chicago.
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. All right, so 5 to 9 million annual production?
Correct.
Is what you're talking about?
Right.
Okay, so yep. that equates to approximately how many loans a year? About 50, 60 loans a year?
That's about right.
Okay, so averaging about 5 loans a month. Okay, cool.
Yeah, you were just talking about me.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of funny how we reach that ceiling of complexity is and by the way, one of the greatest indicators that you're butting your head against that ceiling of capacity limitation is you start to see what we call peaks and valleys syndrome, right?
Yeah.
You do 8 or 9 loans one month and 2 or 3 the next.
That sounds
You ever
about
thought
right,
about,
yeah.
you ever thought about the dynamic of why that happens?
Yes, I have. Generally, I've coached my other loan officers on it, try to stay focused on continuing to bring in the leads and the closings versus what you have in the pipeline so that you're not on that roller coaster.
Exactly, and that's very hard to do, to find that ideal perfect balance. It's very difficult, and like I said, if you ever want to grow consistently beyond the average of 5 to 6 loans a month, likelihood is you need to start thinking about team building and how and why and where to make that happen within the organization you're in. And even in the most restrictive or conservative of banking outfits, there is still a way to do it. It's a little bit more complicated because you've got to sell the company and your boss on the idea of letting you do it. But practical reality is, until you figure out how to duplicate yourself, it becomes a practical impossibility. There just aren't enough hours in the day, particularly with the number of man hours it takes to get a loan closed these days, with the over restrictive regulations and compliance headaches and all that other junk we have to deal with. So, Corey, tell me, what would you like to get some coaching on today?
Actually, when you mentioned team building, that's something I have done, and I've added an assistant who's actually about to go full-blown LO. He's been under my wing for about 2 years, and is doing a tremendous job. And I really feel like I have made a carbon copy of myself at this point, and I'm looking to add to that by adding another assistant or two. And I'm just kind of struggling with trying to find that next great person, as I feel like I've already found.
Okay. All right. So one of the things we often do, and just so you know, that power growth model, it works for whether you're looking at a global strategic planning process, 5 to 7 years down the road, an ultimate vision scenario, what do I want my life to look like in an ideal perfect world, whether you're even looking into the the micro goals of hiring that next assistant. Use the power model process as a way of helping you begin with the end in mind. What is an ideal perfect world? What is the role and responsibility of that assistant? What are the low payoff or no payoff activities you want them to take off your plate so you have more time to do the higher value activities of marketing and sales and conversion? From there, what are the skill sets and abilities of that person from a behavioral characteristic standpoint that you're looking for in that ideal perfect candidate? For example, are you looking for somebody who's really analytical and highly attentive to details but has no personality and is scared of their own shadow? Or are you looking for somebody who has a little bit of a balance between very friendly, easy to talk to, congenial, good communication skills, easily builds rapport, more of those innate customer service and communication skills where she can be a customer-facing assistant versus a back-end administrative, analytical only? But you also need somebody who's relatively attentive to details, right? Because there's a lot of the minutia of the mechanics of getting a loan done that if you miscalculate numbers, or you can't, you don't have an eye for detail, or train yourself to have an eye for detail, you're going to have mistakes made that are costly much later in the process. So you need somebody who's kind of a balance of both. That's what I mean by innate behavioral characteristics, somebody who's relatively communicative. But do you need an assistant who's the natural-born salesperson, charisma out of every pore, and could sell ice to Eskimos type of person? Probably not, right? Especially if you're looking for somebody who can be a long-term production partner with you, right? Well, the next step is, okay, what does the job description look like, and what are some of the interview questions that we can ask? And if you're interested, Corey, if you want to send me a reminder on this, or just make a note that we do actually have job descriptions and interview questions for sort of that sales assistant, associate loan officer, production partner type position that I can send you. So feel free to, if you wouldn't mind, in the workflow of this event, I don't want to stop the flow of it, to notate some items for you, but if you wouldn't mind, just send me a note to remind me to send you that information. I'll forward it to you as soon as we're done here with the call.
I will.
So what is that ideal perfect person look like for you?
Ideally it would be someone, I feel like it should be someone with a little bit of both, that would have good, proper customer service skills, but also have an eye for detail, smart, and able to, and as a team player. So ideally, I feel like I'm looking for someone who's almost fresh out of college or about to finish college, and perhaps been a part of a sports team of some kind, so they already have a pretty good understanding of those types of skills.
Okay. And when interviewing somebody of that position or for that position, what are some of the things that that you would potentially look for as far as behavior set and just behavioral characteristics?
Good question. And that's where I get a little lost. You know, my first problem I feel like I have is just identifying the prospects. Where do I, you know, how do I even get the phone to ring for someone to ask for that position?
Exactly. Well, okay, so there's two sides to this. One is knowing who you're looking for, because that has a lot to do with where you position. For example, you mentioned somebody who has some sports experience and likely has proven themselves to have some commitment and work ethic to achieving a better life. So looking for somebody who's a college graduate or at least has a couple of years of college completion under their belt, somebody who's been part of a sports team, for example. So where could you network in your community? Where could you post job descriptions that might lead to identifying somebody like that? Like, for example, participating in local college job fairs, or reaching out to pretty much every, you know, all the way up down to the local, you know, hometown business schools, all the way up to major universities have some sort of career placement department within those colleges, and so networking with them. In fact, in many cases, they even have like internship programs where you could have somebody come on board on a trial basis, especially anybody who's in a, you know, a business degree field. In many cases, they can even get college credit for those for the work that they would do for you if you're looking for somebody of that type. The other element of that is just, you know, what does that person look like? What are the behavioral skill sets? Well, you mentioned high attention to detail. Well, just for your benefit, and just so you get an experience of what, and so everybody on the call gets an experience for the type of coaching that we provide here at Maximum Acceleration, we're going to go pretty granular. For example, like if you know, let's talk about the specific skill set of attention to detail. Okay. Now, one of the things we teach when it comes to interviewing techniques is asking what we call STAR questions. Long story short, in this approach, STAR questions are based on a model of interviewing called behavioral interviewing. And the reason that we use behavioral interviewing is because it helps us identify, based on past experience, what they're most likely to do in a future situation. The challenge that a lot of people have when it comes to interviewing is asking hypothetical questions. Hey, are you pretty attentive to detail? That's important for this position. So if you were in a situation that, you know, and you ask a what-if type scenario question during the course of an interview, you're asking them to basically lie to you in many cases. You're asking for that creative response, forward-thinking, future imaginative. Versus if I ask a question that says something like, okay, Mr. or Mrs. Candidate, you know, one of the things that's important here is to recognize that attention to detail is a critical element of this job. So tell me about a time in a previous job where you were required to handle a wide variety of variables in a specific project. Maybe you were given very little guidance or support in how to do the project, but attention to detail was a critical element of whether the project was going to be successful. Tell me about that situation from a previous job. What task were you being asked to do? What actions did you take, and what were the results? So I'm asking that interview candidate to give me a historical recollection of that experience, right? There's two things that are going to happen. One is I'm asking them or tasking them to use the logic and analytical centers of their brain, which is going to help me have direct observation of whether they can manage details well, particularly under pressure. Secondly is because I'm asking them to use the logical recall centers of their brain to give me historical accounts of real scenarios. I can go back and check their facts. Thirdly is because I'm asking for historical recall, I'm asking them to use the center of the brain that's on the opposite hemisphere from the creative, manipulative, communicative thought. I'm asking them for logic and analysis, which makes it much harder for them to manipulate their response and snow me by giving me what they think I want to hear, right, when doing those interviews. So what are the next steps for you? What do you need to do with this information to be able to generate an action plan?
For me?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's going to start with reaching out and networking with the local colleges and business schools and their career placement departments.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And then,
secondly, I'd recommend creating a job description of what the position requires and what kind of behavioral skill sets you're looking for that are going to create the highest level of success in that position. Once you have a clear definition of what you want that position to do for you, and identify what behavior characteristics or what skill sets you want that person to have, then it's much easier to have your ideal perfect candidate to compare other applicants against. And you also have a more objective look at being able to evaluate between a variety of candidates. If you get 3, 4, 5 different people apply for that position, you'll be able to identify and balance between which of those 5 candidates is the best position. Of course, thirdly, you want to create a more uniform type of interview process, and of course, using those historical recall type questions would be a third step along the path. You do those 3 things, imagine how much faster you're going to be able to get to the ideal perfect person for that position versus making the mistake of a bad hire, which becomes a huge drain on your time and efficiency in that respect. Make sense?
it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're definitely welcome. Well, Corey, you had asked one other question, and actually, if you want, the question you actually. That's okay. That's part of life. Coaching is about adaptability, right?
Sure.
But the original question you had asked, I did want to address because I think it's one that's on the minds of a lot of people right now. You asked the question of, how do I overcome the objection from a realtor who says most of their clients are coming to them with an approval already in place, and they do not want to disturb their relationships with their prospects by driving them into another lender. Guys, this is probably one of the most, I wouldn't be surprised if 80% of our coaching sessions are in some way, shape, or form connected to this question, which is one of the reasons I wanted to make sure we address it, because this is a common problem among many originators across the country right now. Practical reality is people shop very differently for property than they did 15, 20 years ago. Corey, when you and I got in the business in the mid to late 90s, realtors directed 90% of the business, right? I mean, it was, a buyer went to a realtor said, you need to go get a loan approval. Who do I talk to was the next question the buyer usually said, right? So
Yep,
agents directed the flow of business to mortgage people. Now, though, that dynamic has been turned around 180. I mean, because buyers shop on property, they Google property and search on a website, and then the realtor becomes an afterthought, a necessary means to an end, because they have to write the contract through an agent for publicly listed property, right?
Right.
So right now, when they're shopping when they're shopping online, sorry, one of the questions that came up in Q&A caught my attention for just a second. When they're shopping online, they're seeing all these banner ads for all these different mortgage companies, and in many cases they're being told by the websites to get a loan pre-approval and how important that is, and it's all about rate and all these other things. So in many cases, the lender has already been selected by the time they get to the realtor. So how do we help them understand the value and why it costs them money not to at least give us an introduction on every file? Now, it's a little hard to answer that question in a 30-second spot here, but let me try and do the best I can with it to introduce. Now, think back to some of the positioning conversation when I was going through the 5-phase cycle transformation. Think about transforming that relationship from where we're a vendor on one transaction to the realtor to where we become a committed partner in their success. When we approach it from the perspective of being a resource and an asset to them, that's going to help them do substantially more business. That's the first step, okay? Second step is we've got to begin to help them understand the lost opportunity and the cost of not having more control of their business. So there are 4 key conversations we teach our coaching clients, and it's called, we call it the optimizing lead flow conversation with partners. But of those 4 conversations, the first one's value of your time. Most realtors understand and appreciate they need to get buyers pre-approved before they spend a lot of time shopping. But it still is a great way to reinforce the fact that not all pre-approvals are created equal. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of loan officers out there that do the 5-question over-the-phone pre-qual. Unfortunately, though, the buyer leaves that call feeling like they've been pre-approved, not knowing any better. Loan officer hasn't looked at tax returns, pay stubs, W-2s, bank statements, or any other shred of documentation. They're just trusting what the borrower told them over the initial phone. Second key conversation is what we call the incubator conversation. We all know that out of every 10 buyers, probably 1 or 2 are ready to buy right now and they have all their ducks in a row. Probably 2 or 3 are probably, more than 2 years out or have overcome, obstacles to qualifying for a loan that they'll never be able to overcome, like just way too little income. Thirdly is, in the middle, there's probably 4 to 6 out of every 10 leads that with a little guidance, coaching, and support could get themselves ready to buy a home in 6 to 12 months. Well, practical reality is if we make the commitment to the agents that we're going to work with those people and we're going to save the agent time on the front end, that they don't waste time with buyers who really aren't 100% ready to buy, that will work with those clients over time to help them overcome their qualifying challenges, whether it be credit, down payment, or income issues or challenges. We can work with those clients over time to give them some coaching and support that's going to help them get themselves in position to buy down the road. When we do that, we can bring them back to the agent, and that's the key. All of this encompasses, by the way, and in a more broad term, if I can figure out what's in it for them, what they care about, and communicate from that why perspective first, if I can figure out why it's to their benefit to do what I'm asking them to do, I've won. Half the battle's over at that point, right? So why do they want me to pre-approve every buyer? Because they're going to save time and money on wasting time on buyers who really aren't ready to buy. 2, why do they want me to? Why do I want them to let me incubate their leads? The buyers who aren't quite ready, I can bring back to them, because most of us would agree and appreciate, and without making an obstacle of it with the partnership, if you get agents to be honest with themselves, most of them really suck at follow-up, right? Now, presenting that in a diplomatic way so you don't offend them is another trick, but practical reality is if we can communicate it effectively that they need us to help support them in their lead follow-up with those incubator leads. The third thing we do is what we call the power of edification. We kind of talk about how we can give a very strong endorsement of them and their value to that client. So like, for example, we do the agent endorsement. Well, Mr. Borrower, at the end of the day, the agent's one of the most valuable assets you have in the home search process. A skilled, knowledgeable, full-time real estate advisor is going to be able to save you a tremendous amount of time, and if you'll empower them to do so by enabling them to do what's called a buyer's agency arrangement, they can even be your representative in the negotiations if you're in a competitive bid situation. So I want to introduce you to my friend Joe, who I think is a great agent who's going to do an amazing job at really making sure that you and your family find the best house and get it at a great price. And I guarantee you, whether you choose to work with Bill or not, I think the time you spend with him will be more than worth it from the advice and guidance he's going to share with you during that brief conversation. Is it okay if I have Bill give you a call? Right? So now I'm talking to the agent about how I can make them look a lot better than they could probably make themselves look, which is what we call a third-party endorsement or power of edification conversation. The fourth part of that conversation is what we call an active opportunity mining conversation. At the end of the day, during the course of a normal loan transaction, there are 5 to 7 key naturally positive interactions we have with a borrower, right? Like when we give them their initial pre-approval, or when we call them to tell them their appraisal came in at $3,000 or $4,000 over sale price, and so they're getting some instant equity, or when we get their formal loan approval, or their clear to close, right? There's several interactions during the course of a normal loan transaction that are very positive in nature with the client. So we can leverage those opportunities to talk to those customers about who they know that might be in a position to benefit from an improvement to their housing situation. Practical reality is NAR's been studying the stats for the better of the last 80 years, tracking the average home ownership time frames of families in America. The average has ranged between 5 and 7 years. So what that means to me is 1/5 to 1/7 of the population, or about 13 to 20% of the population, is already thinking that the home they're in is not a great fit, and they're thinking about moving. So, that's 1 or 2 out of 10, 3 to 5 out of 20, or 5 to 7 out of 30. The other thing I know is that every American knows and talks to on a regular basis between 30 and 35 people. Sociologists have been telling us that for years and years. It's what they call their circle of influence, or their core-knit group. Think about it. The people you see, talk to, and communicate with on a weekly basis, the people you see in civic groups, churches, schools, activities, charitable organizations that you're active in, whether it be fraternal, charitable, or otherwise, work, and just the activities that you like to do through the course of your work week, or through the course of life. So what that means to me is every customer I work with knows 5 to 7 people who are likely already thinking that the home they're in is a bad fit and it's time to move. So what we do is we inspire our clients to work with them to understand the value of what we're trying to share with them, so that we can inspire them to do what we call a home opportunity initiative. It's kind of a community service type of program where we're trying to inspire them to introduce us to the folks they know who are likely missing out on some of the greatest housing affordability of the last 100 years. I mean, if you think about it, people's buying power is 30 to 35% stronger than it was in the markets of 06, 07, and 08, the boom markets, right? You're going to be able to, with interest rates at 4% versus 6%, most families can get 30% more house for the same payment. Unfortunately, there's a lot of folks out there who have no clue about that. So what I basically say to the agents in that conversation is, at the end of the day, part of my goal here is, Mr. Agent, that every deal we've got, I want to try and replace it with 1 or 2 more by doing some of these active opportunity mining conversations with each and every borrower. Okay, because we know that everybody knows 5 to 7 people who are likely already thinking about moving in the next 12 months or so. So our job is to work with that client to help us introduce and meet people they know that have that potential opportunity, and help educate their friends, family, and colleagues on what that looks like for them. Again, we're not looking to twist anybody's arm and force them into something that's a bad fit. The practical reality is, will it work every time, all the time? No, but it works a significant enough percentage of the time that it's worth executing. Unfortunately, Mr. Realtor, at the end of the day, I can't do any of these plans, any of these strategies can only be implemented on deals that I have the opportunity to work with. So at the end of the day, I don't mean to be facetious here, but what does it cost you to not at least give me a shot at talking to that borrower? I mean, if you were to say something like, Mr. Borrower, I'd like you to talk to my friend Joe at XYZ Mortgage, or Corey at Diamond Residential, because, over the years, I've seen Corey do an amazing job with helping customers really structure for the long term with their mortgage. And whether you choose to work with Corey or not, I guarantee the time you spend with him will be well worth it. Is it okay if I have Corey give you a call? Now, see, Mr. Agent, if you give me that kind of a strong introductory endorsement, that you protect yourself by issuing the disclaimer of it's your choice, ultimately, whether you choose to work with them or not, but you're teaching the agents how to give you a value-based endorsement. What I mean by value-based endorsement is the what's in it for them element. What does the buyer get from working with me versus working with a competitive loan company, right?
Excellent. I appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. No problem. Well, Corey, thank you for volunteering today. Again, the last thing I want to encourage you to do is, in any part of the coaching process, it really comes down to actions. And I'm going to go ahead and mute you back out, Corey, here as I go through the last little bit of our conversation today with the rest of the group. And by the way, folks, feel free to go ahead and post in here any additional questions you have. I want to make sure my team and I are addressing those questions for you and getting you the information that you're seeking in an efficient time frame. But the last thing I want to really come down to is that 4th step in that 3 keys to successful execution, which is the follow-through and action planning step. A lot of times it comes down to a concept called accountability, and that's really one of the most important things that we provide here at Maximum Acceleration, but it's also what you could provide to the people that you have in your community, whether it's your borrowers or the business development partners that you want to seek to develop a relationship with. And at the end of the day, think about it from this perspective. What do these guys all have in common? You know, the Michael Jordans, the Wayne Gretzky's, the Tom Brady's of the world, what do they all have? Well, if you think about the dynamic of it, they all had somebody in their life who cared as much about their own success as they did, and in many cases more so. You know, so when times were tough or they needed to stretch, grow, or evolve, they would challenge them to push for that next level of performance. So as a result of that, you know, they all had a coach, an accountability partner. So what does it take to be a good accountability partner? Well, one of the other things we developed during that research project is a very keen awareness of what makes a good accountability partner. And whether you decide to move forward with maximum acceleration in some form or fashion or not, it's important that you develop this in your life. And I'll show you why in just a minute. But the practical reality is there's 4 key things that you look for in an accountability partner. One is you look for a trusted advisor, somebody who has the knowledge that you seek that's going to help you go from where you are to where you want to be. I mean, when I got into business early on in 1996, I worked for about 6 months for a guy who was a top producing originator. I was a junior loan officer. That job ended, though, because of the fallout of the refi market. I realized I needed to focus on purchase business, but my first year as a loan officer, I really struggled. But I realized at some point that there had to be somebody out there who knew how to do this business, and I became hungry for that knowledge. I sought it out and I invested in it, and that helped me double my business year over year consecutively to the point where when I left retail production, I had done 237 purchase transactions my last 12 months. Now, maybe some of you on this call have already exceeded that 21 a month average and have done more than that and beyond. But I've had the privilege and honor of working with and helping people even go way beyond that level. But the practical reality of it is that, you know, it's somebody who has that knowledge. I sought out the knowledge of a trainer and coach who had the information I was looking for on how to grow my business and how to create transformational value with my clients. They're also somebody who has that outside perspective, somebody who can see your world from the outside in. You know, one of the biggest challenges to growth in many, many cases is the fact that we get so busy being busy that we forget to stop and take a breath and look at maybe is there a smarter, better, easier way to do what I'm trying to do? Is there a more efficient process that I can implement that can help me accomplish greater results in less time? Once I identify what those key strategies are, then the accountability partner needs to help keep me focused on steady progress. And more importantly, somebody who I trust and respect enough that I'm going to be committed to following through on the actions. It's kind of the running buddy principle. Let me give it to you from a different perspective, though. The research and science supports this as well. In 1998, Brigham Young University did a research study about what it took to convert ideas into action. And what they realized is that, you guys can read the stuff on the chart, but there's 4 key elements to implementing ideas. If you do these 4 things, you have a 95% or greater chance of following through. Okay? 1, you need a goal. 2, you need a step-by-step action plan. 3, you need deadlines for major milestones along that action plan. And 4, you need to share that action plan with somebody and ask them to follow up with you regularly and hold you accountable to the completion of those goals and projects on time. You do those 4 things, you have a 95% chance of change. Okay? So whether you seek to be that accountability partner for the business development partners that you seek to develop over the next 12 months, reaching out for them. I mean, think about the dynamic of changing that relationship with that realtor and becoming that running buddy. And I talk about the running buddy analogy all the time, but some of you maybe even heard that. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip it for now. But what it really comes down to is creating a cyclical flow of assessing, planning, executing, and reassessing, replanning, and re-executing strategies that are going to help you take it to the next level. But imagine how powerful it would be to implement that as a strategic process that you offer to the people around you that you want to grow and become more valuable to, whether it be your borrowers or the potential business development partners. When you change that relationship, when you transform that relationship from one of being the vendor to one of being the advisor, you'll create radical acceleration to your growth. Now, there's a quick question that posted in the Q&A I'm going to address quickly, and for all of you, I know that we're right up to the top of the hour here. Some of you may have to jump. I do want to share a few minutes with you for those who are interested in finding out more about what we offer at Maximum Acceleration. I need about 5 more minutes to share that. But I do want to let you know that the event is being recorded, and we do have the ability to make it accessible to you for viewing the first half of the first part of the conversation, or if you want to go back and even transcribe some of the scripts that you've heard me share today, you're more than welcome to do that. What I want to spend the last couple of minutes with you here, and then I'll be hanging around for another 15 minutes after that to open up the mics again and we can do some Q&A. But there's basically 3 levels of service we offer here at Maximum Acceleration. By the way, all of our services come with access to our members-only resources and tools, regular mastermind meetings with our coaches and guest experts, touch-point calls, and email accessibility to coach between sessions, and no long-term contracts. You know, there are plenty of companies out there that believe in just holding you to a 12 or 24-month contract, and they have a reputation of being somewhat belligerent about letting you out of it. At the end of the day, we believe in, our money where our mouth is. Proof of the pudding type concepts. If you're getting a positive return on your investment, you're going to be likely to continue. If it's not working for you and producing results, then we're not going to hold you to any kind of long-term contract. That doesn't make any sense in practical reality. But we offer 3 levels of service. We have a library of home study course materials, which are basically virtual coaching programs. They're not just static videos. They walk you through step-by-step how to implement the policies, strategies, and procedures that we talk about and coach on. We also offer group and on-site coaching. Group is webinar-based group coaching programs, and on-site training workshops. We have sort of a sales rally in a box type program we offer. And of course, we also offer the one-on-one coaching. So what I'm going to jump into real quickly is just a quick overview of what you get. But before I do that, let me share with you some of the results that our clients have been able to achieve. By the way, these were unsolicited testimonials that were received from our active coaching clients. For example, Adam Kernan last year sent me this email: "Thanks for your coaching. I once thought I didn't have time for volume level for him." Another client, Randall Brower, was the time after 13 years in the business, got into coaching originally to get my life back, even if I did end up doing a little less volume because of time away from sales. When Randall first approached coaching, his first goal was to cut his hours back from 60, 65 hours a week to 40 at roughly the same volume. Guess what? In the first 4 months of last year, brought in 156,000 gross, was double the year before. This year so far, doubled. By the way, this was provided in April of last year is when he sent this comment in. But that volume, he more than doubled, doing almost $250,000 in gross revenue for his branch in the first quarter of the year. So what's his ROI on the coaching investment? Huge. So long story short, there's 3 different programs we offer. One of which is the Critical Mass Group Coaching Program. Basically, what you get with the Critical Mass Coaching Program is access to our entire library of our home study course materials. You get 6 months of group coaching. It's a 90-minute session every other week in a group environment, which is normally around a $2,400 value. Plus, you get access to the home study course libraries. All told would be a little over $8,000 in value for the group coaching program. If you're interested in moving forward with that, the best way to proceed is just go to our website, go ahead and go to the Programs Group Coaching tab. That'll open up the next page, which allows you to see the independent pricing. If you want to do a full 6-month semester up front, you're looking just shy of $2,000 investment. Again, keep in mind, think about the ROI on that. 1 additional loan in 6 months or 2 additional loans in 6 months. What does it take to get a 2.5 to 3 times ROI? If you just do 1 loan a month, that's a 7 to 8 to 10 times ROI on that coaching investment. You can save about $400 for 6 months if you do the upfront single payment option. Otherwise, if you want to go monthly, retails regularly for $449 for the group program and then $399 a month. By the way, the $449 deposit secures your seat. The second month of billing would not start until after you've been in the program for 30 days. So it's a $449 deposit before your first month. Once your group is created and launched, then the second billing would come 30 days after. Okay, that ends up being a total investment of $2,400 for the group coaching program. If you're interested, by the way, there is a way to save a little bit of money. If you use the discount code MASS, M-A-S-S, you'll save an additional $50 if you take action quickly using our Fast Bonus program. By the way, the next group coaching project, the next group class starts the first week of February. Time and date to be determined, accommodating the schedules of the group that register and time zones and logistics. We'll work with the group to try and find a time slot that fits. But we do have the next class slated to start the first week of February. So you want to go ahead and take action, get started, save a little bit of money, go ahead and jump on board. The second level of program I want to introduce you to, one that's prime on everybody's mind and probably a very good example of something based on some of the questions that I've answered, like, for example, the conversation outline that you heard me share, the 4 steps to optimizing partner lead flow, is all packaged within a training program we call our Double Your Income with Power Partners program. It is a turnkey system. It teaches you how to execute what we call the Power Partner Development System. It's a turnkey system for building highly profitable, highly loyal, and committed partnerships with realtors, financial planners, CPAs, insurance agents, really kind of a how do you take 1 and 1 and make it 11 type of program. It's about 7 hours of video, but if you do the program the way it's intended and the way it's laid out, doing all the implementation exercises, it will take you 14 to 15 hours to get through the self-guided training. That program is available for direct purchase if you go to our website. Again, normally, originally when it was launched, it was sold for $6.95 in a live environment. We offer it for today at $2.97. And actually, if you go one step further, we can actually save an additional $50. How you access this, if you go to mxlcoach.com/shop, or you go to our website and you click on the shopping tab on the website, which opens up the shopping cart. Select the DVD digital box sets program and type in the discount code DBL Max. You'll knock $50 off. The turnkey program is yours for unlimited future use for only $247 for the home study course. Now, for those of you who are interested in the one-on-one coaching program, the highest level of service, the most level of commitment, the greatest value is also received typically from this program. Traditionally, our one-on-one coaching program, you and a coach, one-on-one, 2 sessions a month, plus access to the entire library of resources, tools, and materials, and free tickets to any of our Maximum Acceleration events, typically would run around $64.95 for a 6-month semester. But today you can get started for as little as $14.95. Now, again, remember, with that, you get unlimited access. Not only do you get the 6 months of coaching, you get unlimited access to our assessment and growth planning process and the proprietary tools from Loan Toolbox, Platinum Marketing, MMG, and MMG weekly subscriptions on a month-by-month basis are provided along with the coaching program. You also get unlimited access to our entire library of home study course coaching materials, a total of about 50 hours of coaching, training, and content, a little over $12,000 in value for as little as $14.95. Now, we also have an opportunity to save you a little bit of additional money. We offer a fast action bonus for those of you who are serious about taking this to the next level. You go ahead and make the commitment to get started. We'll give you 3 additional bonus sessions if you go ahead and register and sign on by the end of the week. With that in mind, what you're looking at is a $14.95 investment. Now, think about it from this perspective, guys. $14.95, what equates to just a little over $1,000 a month in coaching subscription here. Practical reality is our first goal is to where your coaching investment is yielding you a 2 to 3 times ROI within 60 to 90 days. Historically, we hit that average better than 80% of the time, where within 6 months or within 60 days, you're doing at least 1 or 2 additional loans per month. For most loan officers' commissions, you're looking at a 2 to 3 times return on your $900 per month coaching investment in a one-on-one environment. I mean, where else in life can you get 2 to 300% return on your money in 60 days? So think about it. By the way, again, remember that there's no cost or obligation. There's no long-term contracts or commitments. We offer what we call a 20-day no questions asked cancellation policy. Again, to get access to the one-on-one coaching or to get started with the one-on-one coaching or any of the home study course programs or materials, you can just go to the mxlcoach.com website, click on the Shop tab, and then click here to access the online store to be able to go ahead and make that purchase directly. Of course, the pricing options that are available directly through the website. You get a single payment option, which will save you about $700 a semester for 6 months up front. By the way, the reason we do no more than 6 months installments, many of our coaching clients are in the program for 18 to 24 months or longer, but we want to keep accountability high, so we only allow our clients to subscribe for a maximum of 6 months at a time. But even in the 6-month plan, you still have a 20-day no questions asked cancellation policy. As long as you give us 20 days notice before the next renewal cycle, you finish the month of coaching you're in, and then there's no long-term contract or commitment beyond. Okay? Now, if you're pretty serious about taking this to the next level, and keep in mind, guys, that top-level program may not be for everybody. Maybe some of you may need to start with the home study course materials, get some success with it. You may not have the budget to invest in the one-on-one coaching program just yet. Maybe you want to start with, the base level, the home study, the virtual coaching programs first, or the group coaching program first before you escalate to the one-on-one. If you're thinking that the one-on-one coaching is the right next step for you, but you're not 100% sure and you'd like to ask some specific questions of one of our coaches, the best way to do that is take advantage of what we call our strategy session, which is this short, which is a quick, no cost, no obligation session with a coach. You'll get some live, real-time coaching experience from a client, from one of our expert coaches, and of course along the way have a discussion about when and if it makes sense for you to move forward with one-on-one coaching, as well as ironing out some of the P's and Q's of it. If you'd like to take advantage of one of those strategy sessions, you're welcome to go ahead and post that here in the Q&A platform. Just go ahead and let me know the best phone number, email, and email address and phone number for our team to reach out to you and schedule one of those strategy session appointments. Of course, they are filled on a first-come, first-served basis. With our current staffing and coaching loads, there are only a handful of opportunities a week for those strategy sessions available, and like I said, those are slotted based on the coach's availability and what works for your time frame, which is why it really is important that you give us a phone number that we can reach out to you and connect via phone, so our scheduling department can get that ironed out and get you scheduled with one of our coaches for that strategy session. All right, so that's kind of a quick overview on what we offer here at Maximum Acceleration. At the end of the day, our only goal is getting you from where you are to where you want to go as fast as humanly possible through the programs and services that we provide. If it's not for you, great. If it's not for you now, then that's fine too. We'd love to help support you in any way we can. And just the commitment that I and my team have made is always to make sure we're adding value first, that we're creating results for you. So the last thing I want you to do is, you've all invested about an hour of your time with me at this point. What I'd love to do is make sure that I return that investment by helping you take some of the ideas and strategies and actually put them in play. So do yourself the favor of taking this final step before you jump off, before you hop onto that next email or return that next phone call. Do yourself the benefit of taking another 2 to 3 minutes just to implement or create an action plan for yourself. So these 4 steps, and again, this kind of goes back to that Brigham Young University study. What was the #1 idea you heard me share today? Okay? For example, the realtor approach strategy and becoming the accountability and business development partner to the realtors in your community instead of just the vendor who's begging for deals on a loan-by-loan basis. What was that one most valuable thing you heard today? Secondly, what do you need to do to make sure that one best idea gets implemented? What are the action steps that you've got to take to make sure that that idea gets executed? It's not rocket science. It's, step 1, review the recording. Step 2, outline the conversation strategy or outline script, for lack of a better term, that you heard me share about how to add value to the agents, that agent approach or agent endorsement conversation. 3, set a specific target for the completion of those action items. By the way, step 3 would be block out 30 minutes to practice that approach conversation. Step 4 would be build a list of agents to call. Step 5 would be call the agents. Step 6 would be review, refine, and repeat, reinforce what went well, where can I improve, what's my next steps at the end of each of those calls. So step 3 here in this process of creating your action plan from today's event, by when will you have the action implemented? Set a specific target date for completion. And 4th, who's going to hold you accountable to for that action plan. You know, somebody you know, trust, and respect, somebody who has credible knowledge, somebody who can give you that outside perspective, and somebody who really has the ability to make you committed to that action. You know, I mentioned to you that you've heard me share the running buddy analogy. I mean, think about it from this perspective, especially this time of year. You know, let's say I wanted to lose some weight as a New Year's resolution, so I decide I'm going to start jogging. So, okay, maybe I don't go out January 1st. I was up till midnight and I was too tired to go out. So January 2nd I go out, and maybe I push it harder than I'm really at, that my physical ability would allow, and I wear myself out. January 3rd I go out, I don't make it quite as far. January 4th I barely make it around the block. January 5th I'm sore, every muscle in my body aches because I overdid it the first couple of days, and it's cold, wet, and nasty outside. I just really don't feel like going jogging, so I hit the snooze button, roll over, and never go jogging again. But how different would that be if I had talked to a buddy who I knew was going to go jogging with me? Let's say my neighbor at the New Year's Eve party says, you know, hey, that's a great New Year's resolution. Let's go do that together. So it's January 5th, and it's cold, wet, and nasty and ugly outside, and every muscle in my body aches, but I know my neighbor's going to be on my doorstep at 5:30. How guilty am I going to feel if I don't get up and go? You know, that's that Brigham Young 95% chance of completion process that we're really talking about here. It's so easy to break the promises we make to ourselves. It's so much harder to break promises we make to people we trust, respect, and appreciate. So decide who's going to be your accountability partner that's going to help you follow through and carry through on those plans. Of course, if there's anything we at Maximum Acceleration can do to help you and support you in that perspective, please don't hesitate to ask. Again, if you're interested in taking advantage of one of those no-cost, no-obligation strategy sessions, please feel free to go ahead and post so in the Q&A right here, and we'll make sure that we follow through on getting you that information. And getting you scheduled. Again, make sure you post the best phone number and email address for our team to be able to reach out to you and get that appointment scheduled and to go to the next level with it. Again, thank you to the participants that volunteered to get some live real-time coaching. For any of you that would like me to address any specific questions that I didn't cover in today's program, you're welcome to go ahead and post those in the Q&A right now, or at least to let me know that you're interested in maybe having a. And I can, by the way, I can open up the microphone for any of you that are still remaining on the call, and we could even just converse live if you're interested. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording of the program at this point.